Okay, Madam Chair, the witness wishes to make an affirmation. Mr. Witness, please repeat after me. I, your name? I, Mamadou Diallo, do affirm that I will speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay, you may be seated, please. Madam Chair, the witness has been sworn.
Thank you, Secretary. Good afternoon, Mr. Diallo. You're welcome. Counsel.
Thank you.
Proceed. Thank you.
Thanks. Good afternoon, Mr. Diallo.
Yes.
Can you please state your names for the record?
My name is Mamadou Diallo.
Okay, where do you live?
I live in Burfoot.
And what is your occupation?
I'm a businessman and also the chairperson of the Local Government Service Commission.
Okay. You gave a statement to the investigators for the commission, is that right?
Yes.
And the statement was prepared by yourself?
Yes.
And you signed it?
Yes.
All right, please look at this statement. Is that the statement that you gave?
Yes, that's my statement.
And you adopted as part of your evidence before the commission?
Yes.
Chairperson, I apply to tender the statement of the witness that has been identified and adopted.
Very well, Counsel. The statement written by Mamadou Diallo, dated the 3rd of May 2023, is hereby admitted in evidence and marked as LGC stroke LC sorry, let me take that one again. The statement made by Mamadou Diallo, dated the 3rd of May 2023, is hereby admitted and marked as LGC MJ 001.
As the commission pleases. Now, Mr. Diallo, you have stated you have said in your statement that you were hired by the area councils in June 1983 after you completed your secondary education.
Yes, sir.
Did you do any further educational courses after your secondary education?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell us about that?
I went to GTTI from 1988 to 1992 to pursue the AAT accounting level 3 certificate. And from there in 2002-2003 I went to the University of Birmingham, where I obtained a master's degree in governance and development management.
Thank you. You've stated that you worked with the councils from 1983 to 2013 until you took voluntary retirement.
Yes.
Did you only work with the area councils? Did you work anywhere else afterwards, other than the commission?
From 1983 to 2013, I've worked in the area council uninterrupted.
Okay. Can you take us through your 30-year career with the area councils? Where did you start and how did you move on?
Yeah, I was first appointed revenue collector in 1983, June, in Basse Area Council. From there, I was transferred to Kerewan Area Council, where I served most of my career. From 84 to 1998, I was in Kerewan. Then in 1998, around April, I was transferred to Birkama Area Council as assistant treasurer. Then in 1999, I was transferred back to Kerewan as the treasurer, which is equivalent to the director of finance.
Okay.
Then in 2002, I was transferred and promoted to the position of local government officer, which was later changed to the CEO, office of the CEO in 2002 at the Kuntauri Area Council. I was CEO from 2002 to 2013 when I took voluntary retirement. When I retired, I was also hired on contract by the ministry to serve as director of governance, where I have served for 3 years. In 2016, I opted also to leave.
You've had a very long career with local government and the ministry, it seems.
Yes.
Okay. So some of the questions, just bear with us, some of the questions will probably be related to your experience within the local government service and the ministry. But can I just ask, when did you become a member of the Local Government Service Commission?
This was in September last year, around 26th, I think, 26th or 24th September.
2022.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what has been your experience of the local government authorities throughout your 30-year career? Have you found that they've been more effective, or they're more effective now, or were they more effective maybe 20 years ago? I mean, you've been there before the 97 Constitution,
Yes.
before the Local Government Act,
Yes.
and the Local Government Finance and Audit Act.
Yes.
So can you tell us what your experience of the councils have been?
Before the 1997 Constitution, we had the area councils. They were poorly staffed, not by highly educated staff. You see, but they also have very dedicated staff. Despite they didn't have that high level of education, but they were dedicated and they were providing services and development to the people. Then after we had this decentralization program, when it started, a lot of consultations were made.
Sorry, can I just cut you off there?
Yes.
You said a lot of consultations were made. Were they made with the councils?
Yes, with councils and other stakeholders.
You're very involved?
Yes.
Okay.
Councils were involved with all other relevant stakeholders. They are consulted, which led to the enactment of the Local Government Act in 2002, followed by the Finance and Audit Act in 2004.
Now, you've said that the councils didn't have very educated staff at the time, but they had very dedicated staff.
Yes.
And they were able to provide development services for the community.
Yes.
Have you found that it was better then, as in the services that were being provided were better then than now? Or perhaps give us an example of the type of services that were being provided at that time.
Yeah, at that time, like in the rural councils, they will do roads, they will do culverts, you see, they construct seed stores, a host of projects, you see, buildings, school buildings, and all those things.
Was this before the 97 Constitution?
Yes, before the 1997 Constitution.
And how did they do this? I mean, so now I know we have the village development committees, we have the ward development committees, but at that time, what was the structure with the local government authorities?
No, by then, there was nothing like this VDCs and WDCs, village development and ward development committees. You see, but councils were working through with their councillors. You see, councillors will come up with their projects, submitted to council, and then the council will have their plan and then implement projects based on their plans. And during that period also there was close monitoring of the area councils. Then we used to have a very vibrant inspectorate unit at the ministry, which was closely monitoring the local councils. All the area councils were being monitored, inspectors were hired, you see, and then they were doing regular monitoring. I think that also helped, you see, councils to deliver.
And during that time when the inspectorate was monitoring and inspecting, were there enforcement mechanisms for when the councillors or the councils were not carrying out their functions as required?
Yeah, of course, because then I can say the inspectors were even feared. You see, when they say the inspectors are coming, everybody will try to put his house in order. Okay. You see, and that also contributed. You see.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
Yes.
What about the relationship between the people and their councillors? How was that regulated? Since there was no WDC, no VDC, how did the councillors relate with the people to plan development, etc.?
Well, I couldn't elaborate. I cannot elaborate more on that because then I was a junior officer.
Okay.
You see, but I observed, I could recall that definitely there were projects being done and there was close monitoring. But projects were coming from the councillors.
And how were the councillors chosen prior to being elected by general adult suffrage?
The councillors were elected.
They were still elected?
Yes, they were elected.
By the people? Okay.
By what?
Was there a time that who used to, or who was eligible to vote for councillors at that time?
I think it was adult suffrage,
really?
If I can recall.
Okay, because I was checking whether there was a time where it was compound owners that were entitled to vote.
Yeah, that was for the chiefs and the alcalos, I think.
The chiefs and the alcalos.
Yeah, if my memory can serve me well, it was the chief and it was the chiefs and and alcalos, that yard owners, compound owners will vote. But that was revised during the Second Republic to universal adult suffrage.
So you have said from in your statement that the local government authorities or councils are headed by a mayor or a chairperson, and councillors who are responsible for policy at council level. Yeah. Can you tell us more about this?
Yes, as council, the way it is, the setup is you have the political wing and the administrative wing. The council is headed by an elected mayor or chairperson with ward councillors, and which are responsible of policy issues You see, and also they have an oversight function, you see, on the administration. They also work in committees so that issues can be addressed by a smaller number before it is taken to the general body. There are committees that are established. Some are mentioned by the Act, but they can also establish committees based on the need.
Okay. Do you find that, or is it the case that prior to the Act, there was still a committee system for driving policy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you said there's policy arm, which is the council, and the administrative arm, which is the other council. Yes. Can you break it down a bit more, for somebody who doesn't understand what the two are?
Yeah, the administrative arm is the staff of the council, the permanent staff.
So that would be the CEO
which is headed by the CEO and supported by directors.
Okay.
Or the support staff.
And then the policy part?
Are the mayor, the councillors.
Okay. Now, you said that the council is broken down into committees and subcommittees, which would then report to the general council.
Yes.
So do you find that, well, there are instances that we have seen from the witnesses that have come before the commission, where there are several councils that don't have committees. So some councils don't have establishment committees. Some don't have, or they don't have a thriving finance committee. They don't have audit committees. Do you think that, from your experience, it is possible to carry out the mandate of the council without these committees being active?
Yeah, I think some of the committees you mentioned are mandatory, since they are mentioned in the Act. And I don't think there should be a council without such committees, like the Establishment and Appointment Committee, the Finance Committee, the Development Committee. These are committees that are mentioned in the Act. It will surprise me if there are councils, you see,
There's
that they don't have. Maybe they may not be effective, you see, but I think there should be committees.
Are you familiar with the planning committee?
Yes.
So can you maybe tell us what the function of the planning committee is?
That's the planning committee.
Planning or development committee?
Yeah, they are responsible for coordination of the development activities of the council and helping in the development of the council development plan, where they can work with the wards and the village development committees so that they collate the projects.
Can you kindly speak up, because we are not getting what
you're
saying?
Yeah, so that they
Yes,
collate the development projects from the village level to the ward level, and which is taken to council, because there is that link in the structure. You see, because the village development committee is at the village level, then you have the ward committee, and the ward committee comprises of one female member and one male member of each village development committee. They are selected by that village development committee to represent them at the ward development committee. And then the ward development committee also is chaired by the elected councillor, you see, who sits at council, you see, so that there is a link. You see, there is a link from the village to the ward to the council.
So in your experience, do you believe that the council would be able to carry out its development goals or its planning goals without a development committee or planning committee?
Well, if they do so, it will not go in line with the decentralization objectives, because decentralization is meant to ensure participation and if people are not involved in designing their own projects, they don't have a say in how their monies are being used, that defeats the purpose of decentralization.
Okay. You've just touched on decentralization. Were you involved in any of the decentralization policies that the government was working on?
Yes.
Which of them? I know there's a 2007 one. There's, I think, 2015 to 2024.
Yeah, the 2015 to 2024 one.
What was your role in developing that policy?
Then I was the director of governance.
Okay.
Because when I took over, I realized that the policy we had, you see, was absolute, and then we needed to have a policy, and not also even to have a policy, but also to have an implementation plan. Because there was a policy, but it was not accompanied by an implementation plan, which makes implementation very difficult. Then we developed a project proposal, sent it to UNDP for possible funding, and we had a series of consultations with UNDP, but finally they end up funding the activity, and then a consultant was recruited, the tender was floated, the evaluation and the final selection of the contractor was done at the UNDP office with our participation. I was part of the whole process. Then a consultant was appointed who kickstart the work. Then after a validation workshop was prepared, and then I could remember, yeah, I prepared the cabinet paper. It was sent to cabinet, but later it was approved by cabinet.
It was approved by cabinet?
Yes.
Okay, because we've been told previously that the decentralization policy was not approved by cabinet.
No, I think it was approved. My memory serves me, it was approved.
Okay.
Yeah, because I prepared the CP, the cabinet paper myself, and it was submitted. It took time before it was approved, but it was approved.
Would you be in a position to provide any documentation to corroborate that it was approved?
Maybe at the ministry.
The Ministry of Lands?
Yes, should have it in their records.
Okay. And there was also an action plan for the decentralization process, was there not?
Yes.
Do you know what happened to the policy and the action plan? Because I believe the policy and the action plan broke down the decentralization process into two phases. The first phase would be 2015 to 2019, and the second phase would be 2020 to 2024.
Yes.
And certain steps were supposed to be taken by government to start devolving powers to the local government councils. Do you know how far the government went, at least towards phase one?
No, in fact what happened before the policy was even approved, it took 2 years, I think, something like more than 1 year or in the second year of implementation. You see, it was supposed to be implemented in the 2015. 2015
to 2019?
Yeah, I think it must have been approved in 2015 or 16.
Okay.
16, most likely it should be 2016. Time elapses. You see, there was a gap. And then funding also, I'm sure, became a problem.
Funding by whom?
Funding to fund the activities, because the activities were also costed.
Okay, which activities were these?
The implementation plan, the action plan.
But what was the government's objective with decentralization?
Well, decentralization, it depends on Which country?
No, but I mean,
there was for decentralization during those days. Some countries went into decentralization because due to donor pressure. Some countries because they wanted to decongest the center. You see, some countries because they wanted devolution. You see, so they have different objectives.
But for Gambia, the Gambia chose devolution.
Yeah,
is that
yes,
not right?
yes, the Gambia chose
And
devolution.
why was this? Was it because they wanted to decongest the center?
Yeah, because the Gambia, before, when they were preparing the act, they went on study tours in Uganda and Ghana, I think.
Okay.
Because in Uganda, they were the darling of the West during those days. They had a good decentralization, policy. You see, and then most of these things were, you can say, borrowed from the Uganda experience.
Okay.
You see, so that they go for devolution, transfer of many functions or responsibilities from the ministries, so that the ministries will be responsible of policy, and then the implementation will be at the council level, and that would require some restructuring at the council level. That led to changing all these positions, like having the chief executive officers, having directors, because the regional departments, directorates, they were not directorates at that time, they were regional offices.
Okay.
Because of the decentralization policy, some ministries started, like education, they took the lead, started appointing regional directors, you see, followed by health, agriculture, with the anticipation that those are the officers that are going to be transferred to the local government authorities, you see, so that they continue the implementation part of the ministry, and then the ministry will be responsible of the policy, you see, but that has never happened.
And those are the only 3 ministries that established directorates in the regions?
Maybe at that time, but maybe now the situation may change, because I think even other departments also have regional directors now. Yes.
And do you know what has hindered the process of devolution?
Well, some people will say capacity and the political will. You see, it is not easy to let go of power. Some ministries were so powerful, they manage big budgets. So if you want to take all that from them, you see, there are bound to be some resistance. You see, but the issue of capacity was very prominent at the local council level.
Was this so even during the time that you were director of governance at the ministry? Because, like you said, they introduced new positions, CEO, directors of finance, etc. They required more educational qualifications for these positions. So in what context would you say capacity was an issue? Is it that there weren't enough educated people with educational qualifications, or was it just general capacity issues?
Not enough highly educated people at council.
But this is more in the regions rather than within the Greater Banjul area?
It was both.
It was both?
Yes.
We now have I don't know which departments and directorates were under the Ministry of Lands when you were Director of Governance. Do you remember?
Yes, you have the Department of Lands and Surveys, Physical Planning, Community Development, and the Directorate of Governance. These were when I was there, these were the...
Was the ministry responsible for religious affairs then?
No.
NGO affairs?
Then it was Interior.
it had NGO affairs?
No, at that time, no.
Okay.
Then NGO affairs was also moved.
So we now have a situation where the Ministry of Lands is responsible for all these different departments and directorates, and they're also directly responsible for the local area councils by the Directorate of Local Governance.
Yes.
During your time as director, did you find that the ministry was in a better position, or that the ministry conducted its monitoring and inspection functions, well, whether they effectively, thank you, whether they effectively carried out their monitoring and inspection functions?
I think it was better then than now, because of the fact that the staff who were at the inspectorate unit were the staff that were moved to the Directorate of Governance, and they have that wealth of experience in monitoring and inspection. But unfortunately, none of those are there now. Yes.
Is it that they retired?
Yes, they were retired.
And was the directorate able to independently carry out its functions? I mean, of course, subject to directions of the minister or the permanent secretary, whoever it would be. But overall, were they able to independently take action when it came to the councils?
No, the directorate don't take the actions. The directorate will perform their supervisory role, their inspection, and then report to the permanent secretary, who takes the decisions.
And what kind of decisions would the permanent secretary take?
Well, it depends on the situation at hand.
Okay, so in the situation, okay, let me just ask first, what did your inspection role comprise of? What did you inspect when you went to the councils, and how often did you do it, etc.?
Yeah, it was done periodically. There was no time frame set.
But in a year, about how many times?
Well, I cannot recall all that, okay. But at times it is triggered by events happening also.
Okay.
Something may happen in a particular council, and then we send a team to go and inspect. But at least they go around to all the councils also to do the inspection. Even during those times, even the capacity was limited, you see, but at least they were able to do monitoring regularly, you see.
Okay, so now we have situations where there's a National Audit Office that carries out audits, yes, annual audits on the councils. They will check the council's financial statements and then check compliance and performance as well. I guess runs tandem with the inspection functions of trade. And they would give a report which will detail what they found. So a lot of the issues of where we there's no finance committee, there's no minutes of meetings of any of the committees, there's no establishment committee. The performance audit in the performance section in respect to the projects of the council, so like the market structures, etc. We've been able to see the things from those audit reports, and these reports are sent to the ministry and other stakeholders. Now, did the what was at hand at that time?
At that time, all correspondence the permanent secretary. The permanent secretary who decides, you see, what to do and what not to do, because the councils don't write direct to the directorate. The audit reports are not sent direct to the permanent secretary. So when they are secretary, the permanent secretary communicated to the director of governance for this with the you see, to come up with the management response. We report back to the permanent secretary.
These audit reports, would you include the issues that have been highlighted in the reports for your inspections when you go to the councils for your own periodical inspections?
Well, it depends. At times, no, but sometimes they do, depending on the gravity of the.
So, for things like the committees of the councils, where it's been highlighted that there's not any mandatory committees functioning in the council, what would the directorate situation?
Yeah, I don't think that should happen in the forum.
We've established that, but what would the reaction of the or the directorate be in such an instance?
Yeah, the director is aware of such, he should report.
And what action would the
council to establish those committees?
And what happens if they don't?
If they don't, the ministry should ensure that because they are empowered by the Act.
But have you seen a situation where this has actually happened, where the council to comply in such a situation and they have not?
In those days, no.
Mr. Jallo, you have, in your statement, you have indicated the status of the commission, of which you are the chair.
Yes.
Right? And I think provisions of the Act, which is 9, provides for the independence of the Local Service Commission. Let me just kindly read this to you, and then I will ask the question.
Okay.
Section 119 says independence of a Local Service Commission, subject to the provisions of the Constitution. Act. A local government service commission shall be independent and shall not be subject to the direction of any person or. Now, you have told this commission that matters are directed to the permanent takes action. So how do you reconcile the functions that are provided for in the actual relationship between the commission and the permanent secretary when it comes to this?
Okay, I think I'm a little confused. What I was responding was the directorate. You see, when they have issues, they send it to the permanent secretary for action. But for that's found there that they said they're operating like all correspondence secretary, and then the permanent secretary to the commission, which there are issues. There could be issues surrounding that too, because it implies that then the permanent secretary determines what goes to the commission and what doesn't go to the commission. Any issue to the commission, for me, I think that can be revisited, you see, and come up with a more pragmatic way to reduce the bureaucracy, because that will delay.
Yes.
But the commission also, when we have our recommendations or our decisions, to convey the decisions.
Yes, when you took up as chairman of the commission,
yes,
did you have the opportunity of looking at your roles and responsibilities are?
Yes.
And I believe that you have averted your mind to section 119, correct?
Yes.
And any time discussed with the permanent secretary as to, you know, the conflict and the rules?
Yes, we've discussed it. We've even discussed it with the PSC.
You?
Because we even discussed this issue with the PSC,
yes,
the Public Service Commission.
Yes.
Because when we came in as the new commission, we felt it necessary to have a courtesy call on the Public Service Commission to learn best practice from them and sort of an orientation, which was very successful. And then these issues were discussed during that meeting. And then they, according to PSC, they have their secretariat, but correspondence goes to the PMO. You see, the permanent secretaries will write not directly to the PSC, but they write to the PMO. And then the PMO will forward mission through the secretariat. And when they have decisions, the decisions are also conveyed by the PMO. So that was the approach they said the minister. But I think they were suggesting the directorate to play a role in that.
Which directorate?
The Directorate of Local Governance. But the Directorate of Local Governance, being the secretariat, temporary, it's supposed to be a temporal arrangement, cannot play a double role. They cannot serve as secretariat and also serve as like the PMO. What PMO is doing. But PMO is responsible for personnel. They have all information, all details about personnel, you see. But maybe the ministry don't have all that. So it will be very for the directorate to do that dual responsibility.
Don't you think there was confusion about the role of the secretariat and the role of the commission?
No. They are clearly spelled out, because the commission, the secretary is not a member of the commission. You see, the secretary is to take minutes and keep records, but he's not a member of the commission.
How many members do you have in the commission?
We have 5.
And how often do you sit?
Since we took over, we sat many times. Though we had some issues, challenges of sitting, but we sit very regularly. And even some members are complaining that we sit too many times. You see, I told them it's the nature of the job. When the demand is there, we have to sit. You see, but I'm sure this commission sits more frequently than the previous commissions, all the previous commissions.
Now, you have also stated the functions of the establishment and appointment committee.
Yes.
Which is supposed to be set up by the individual councils.
Yes.
Which committee should deal with issues of appointment, dismissal, conditions of service, discipline of officers and other employees of the council, and any other matters connected therewith, or such other functions as the council may deem fit in the circumstance to make?
Yeah, that is the establishment committee.
Yes.
They will sit, they will discuss,
yes,
but recommend to the service commission for issues of that nature.
Now, given the fact that you have spent long years in the councils,
yes,
and having taken on the job of the chair of the Public Service Commission, and also noting the numerous complaints and issues
yes,
that are directed to your office. What has been your reaction towards making sure that the councils have this establishment and appointment committees, and not have them established but them to be functional in order for you to be able to do your job?
Yes, when we came in as commissioners, we sat and we strategized the way forward. We felt it necessary to go around countrywide to all the councils to engage them, to see firsthand what obtains on the ground, and also to dialogue with them so that they have that understanding why the commission. Because it seems there is not adequate information, you see, at council level. So we felt it prudent to go around all the country, but this coincided with then the elections were just around the corner, and we said it's better to hold on after the elections, when new councillors are elected, when new committees are established, then we can go around, engage them to have that dialogue. And then from there, because we want them to see us as partners, we are there to provide services for them. You see, we are not fighting with them or trying to exercise who has authority. No, that's not the issue. We are to complement their efforts. We are providing service for them so that they embrace the commission. You see, that is our main objective. And we have the budget allocation already. Funds are already set aside for that. And hopefully in the next 1 month or so, when the dust is settled, everything is in place, we will kick off our trek, go around and have this engagement with all the councils.
In the 8 area councils that we have, how many have you served in as CEO?
I have served in Kuntaur, Janjambure, Kerewan, and Birkama. I was moved to Banjul briefly, but I did not. It was later cancelled.
You said? Can you?
I was briefly moved to Banjul, you see, but I did not take over even. It was cancelled. But I've worked as CEO for 4 councils.
And you are aware of the enormous issues that those councils have over the years?
Yes, councils have
which were
issues.
highlighted in the various reports?
Councils have issues.
But to be specific, all those issues that have been highlighted in the audit reports?
Anyway, I'm not privy to the audit report, so I wouldn't know all the issues highlighted in the audit report.
So, as chairman of the Service Commission, you were not availed the reports from the ministry, and to be specific, from the permanent secretary?
No. We only requested for the audit report. That was last week when we had a meeting, and there was an issue with the former director of finance of BCC and the KMC. Then we requested for the audit reports.
And that was?
It's given to us.
That was last week?
Last week, yes.
So even when these audit reports were sent to were taken to the National Assembly and debates were made over these reports, you did not make any attempt to request and know what is happening?
No.
So with the view to addressing some of the issues that are complained of?
No, because we address issues that are sent to the commission. The commission don't go out, look for issues. Okay. When issues are sent to the commission, that's the time we act.
Yes, Council.
Pardon? I was just going to check. It's 2 p.m., so I don't know whether anyone needs to go for prayers.
Oh, okay. I did not avert my mind to the fact that it's 2. We would take a break for lunch and prayers, and we will be back in exactly an hour from now, and we may rise for the break. Thank you.